Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishnavule Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschachadi Sakarane. So I'm going to try to carry on with the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. It's the last chapter, and we've been hearing so much explanation of everything. When Krishna vibrates his flute, Braja's bulls, deer, and cows, standing in groups at great distance, are all captivated by the sound, and they stop chewing the food in their mouths and cock their ears. Stunned, they appear as if asleep or like figures in a painting. Commenter. This verse from the Bhagavatam 10:35-5 describes the rare good fortune shared by the cows and the bulls and other animals that were with them. Dear friends, please now hear something wonderful. When the bulls, deer, and cows hear Krishna's flute, they feel the urge to approach him. They all come from far away and stand nearby him, fully enchanted. They forgot about the grass in their mouths, and it either stays where they're unchewed or else falls from their mouth to the ground. Their ears standing upright, the animals remain silent, as if asleep or as if not living beings but painted images. Thus these animals, bewildered by prema, lose their powers of thought and activity. Or, explaining what happens in another way, at first the cows hear Krishna's flute from a distance, as an indistinct murmur without embellishments or even without a discernible melody. But simply that faint sound is enough to capture their hearts and completely agitate them. After a short time, when the cows, bulls, and deer hear the song of Krishna's flute more clearly, they feel fear that death might intervene and separate them from Krishna. So to prevent themselves from hearing any more, they lift their front legs and forcibly cover the holes of their ears. When that fails to stop the sound, they come closer to Krishna, holding blades of grass in their mouths as a sign of humble entreaty. And when that also fails to stop Krishna from playing, they all become stunned. The word chitram in this verse is in the singular form because as these animals fell into stupor, they came together into a densely packed group, like figures posed together in a painting. Next verse. The Aborigine women of the Vrindavan area become disturbed by lust when they see the grass marked by the reddish kumkum powder, endowed with the color of Krishna's lotus feet. This powder originally decorated the breast of his beloveds, and when the Aborigine women smear it on their faces and breasts, they feel fully satisfied and give up all their anxiety. Comment. The human beings in Braj, of course, are more exalted than the lower forms of life. In this verse, 10:21-17, one gopi first glorifies the outcast women who dwell in the forest. The Pulindas are the Aborigine tribe living in Braj. They are also known as Shabaras. Referring to them also implies other tribes of Braj, including the Vila. The low-class Pulinda women felt fully satisfied, Purna, when they smeared themselves with the effulgently red kumkum that came from the lotus feet of Krishna. Urugaya, who plays his flute, Gayati, in many wonderful ways, Uruda, as soon as they smeared this cosmetic powder on their faces and breasts, the Pulindas felt relief from the piercing arrows of Cupid. How is this kumkum, usually found on the breasts of the women, found in the grass of the Pulindas? Out of shyness, the gopis do not explain the reason in so many words, but the fact is that this kumkum came from the breast of some of the gopis, these particular gopis who had succumbed to the allure of Krishna Sankirtan, and the song of Krishna's flute had allowed him to seduce them. During their intimate pastimes, the kumkum had been transferred from their breast to his lotus feet. Later, as Krishna walked through the forest, the same kumkum fell from his feet onto the grass and stones in the path. Apparently Krishna was walking vigorously because the kumkum powder became firmly attached to the grass and stones. And when the Aboriginal women, foraging for wood in the wild herbs, came to the same part of the forest, they discovered the kumkum. Why were the Pulindas disturbed by lust? Seeing the kumkum on the ground reminded them at first of Krishna, and then of his intimate affairs with the gopis. Thinking about these things agitated their minds. The word smara can be understood to mean either remembrance or Cupid. And how were the Aborigine women relieved of this agitation? By picking up the red powder and smearing it on their faces and breasts, which were burning with lust. Having done this, the Pulindas felt completely satisfied. In contrast, the gopis, speaking and hearing the count, lament that they will never feel so satisfied. As implied by the words Shri, splendid, and Mandita, adorned, the kumkum became more beautiful by being smeared on the breast of Krishna's beloved gopis, and even more effulgent by contact with Krishna's lotus feet. Though the Pulindas normally have no beauty or glow on their faces, when they decorated their own bodies with this kumkum from the grass and stones, they became beautiful, effulgent, and free from the pain of lust. The gopi, speaking, means to say, we are condemned because we cannot become exalted like the Aborigine women. Or looking at the situation another way, because the blessed gopis are always immersed in the torment of separation from Krishna, they tend to presume that everyone else must also be suffering in the same way. So the Pulindas too, they think, must now be suffering a pain of separation from Krishna. The limbs of the Pulindas were covered, purna, with kumkum that looked exactly like the color of the soles of Krishna's feet. So when the gopis saw the Pulindas, the gopis remembered how for Krishna's pleasure they themselves had first decorated their own breasts with that same kumkum. Because the color of the kumkum resembled the hue of Krishna's feet, the gopis liked to use it. Another explanation is also possible. The wonderful music of Krishna's flute had drawn the gopis into the forest to a wonder about searching for him. And when they couldn't find him anywhere, in the anguish of viraha bhava, they rolled on the ground, smearing the grass with the kumkum from their breasts. Later, when the Pulindis came, simply seeing the red powder made them remember Krishna and his dealings with the gopis, and they were stung by the arrows of Cupid. Thinking about the great love the gopis have for Krishna, and recalling that this kumkum had been in contact with the gopis' bodies, the Aborigines picked up some of the powder with great reverence and applied it to their faces. Then their own lust impelled them to smear it also on their breasts. What then? But then they wiped this kumkum off their bodies and threw it away. Why? Because it caused them intense pain. They were already disturbed by lust just by seeing the kumkum powder, and when they touched it, their minds became thoroughly agitated. But then they smeared it on their faces and breasts. The pain became so extreme that they quickly wiped it off. And threw it away, afraid that otherwise they would become to a bad end. Alas, the gopis speaking complains, just like these Pulindis, we too are most unfortunate, cast into the ocean of intolerable pain. But just see how especially unlucky we gopis are. Just by touching the cosmetics from our bodies, people feel such misery that they throw the stuff away to protect their lives. Next verse. Sometimes Krishna would go to the somewhat distant place to see the beauty of the forest. Then all the other boys would run to accompany Krishna, each one saying, I shall be the first to run and touch Krishna. I shall touch Krishna first. In this way they enjoyed life, by repeatedly touching Krishna. Prabhupada mentions one place that we're attracted to the forest and everything because Krishna likes the forest. The cowherd boys who constantly accompany Krishna are certainly superior to the Aborigine forest women. Brihad Maharaj now recites 6 verses in praise. These cowherd boys are Gopakumaras. The first 3 verses are spoken by Shukadev Goswami in the 10th canto, chapter 12, text number 6, 11, and 12. And they describe how these boys joined Krishna in tending the cows. Very early in the morning, the Supreme Lord, eager to enjoy the day's countless pastimes, like killing Aghasura and eating lunch on the grass, called out to his friends by bugling on his buffalo horn, and they came out of their house by the thousands. Tending thousands, millions, and billions of calves, they all set out to the forest. They decorated themselves with forest ornaments, fruits, twigs, and other items, and sported by playing their flutes, blowing their horns, imitating animals, and playing keep-away with one another's lunches. They played all these games simply for Krishna's enjoyment. They had a chance to touch Krishna and embrace him, which gave them the highest happiness. In their eagerness, they competed to see who would be the first to touch Krishna. Sometimes the beauty of Vrindavan and other forests would so beguile Krishna that he wanted to go alone to explore them. But he was so attached to the company of his friends that he would leave them only for a short time. Then the boys would run after him, trying to follow him in a solitary side trips. The cowherd boys were not satisfied unless they could be right there with Krishna and able to touch him. A minute. In this way, all the cowherd boys, having accumulated the results of pious activities for many lives, used to play with Krishna, who for impersonalist Gyanis is realization of the bliss of Brahman, who for devotees is eternal servitorship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and for ordinary people is nothing but an ordinary child. Comment. Amazed by the incomparable good fortune of the cowherd boys, Sri Badarayani continues to praise him for joining Krishna in his cow tending and other pastimes. By associating so intimately with Krishna, these boys were directly experiencing the transcendental happiness of Brahman realization. Krishna is the supreme worshipable deity of saints, Satam, who have been given the privilege to enter his service. Satam also means liberated souls. Krishna's friends in Braj are liberated persons who take part in the happiness of knowing Brahman, the absolute truth. Most people, however, are not liberated. They are Maya Shrita, bewildered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord's power of illusion, and therefore they consider Krishna as ordinary cowherd boy, Naradaraka. Satam can also be understood to indicate the seekers of spiritual knowledge who realize Krishna in his impersonal Brahman feature and enjoy the happiness of knowing Brahman in that way. But to the Vaishnava devotees who consider themselves Krishna's servants, Dasyam Gatanam, Krishna, the Supreme Master, Paradaivata, gives himself, submitting himself to their control. Material nature bewilders the entire creation, but Krishna's pure servants bewilder him by the strength of their pure love and thus defeat material nature. Taken in another sense, Maya Shritanam refers to Krishna's beloved gopis who worship the goddess Maya with choice mantras. Kachayani Maha Maya Maha Yogin Yadishwari Nanda Gopa Satam Devi Patim Me Kuru Te Tamamaha Iti Mantram Japantas Ta Pujan Chakru Kumaraka. Each of the young married gopis performed the worship while chanting the following mantra. O Goddess Katyayani, O great potency of the Lord, O possessor of great mystic power and mighty controller of all, please make the son of Nanda Maharaj my husband. I offer my obeisances unto you. Bhagavatam 10:22-4. The gopis could see Krishna only as an attractive youth, Nara Dharaka. They gave no thought to his godly omnipotence. As if ordinary girls, they simply focused their attention on him as the sole object of their desire and affection. Or another reading, the same Krishna who is a constant companion of the cowherd boys is also amorous appeal personified for all human females, Naradara. Or else Krishna figuratively tears apart all persons, Naran Darayati, by filling their hearts with unique love for him. Of course, Krishna's attraction in the conjugal rasa is most appropriately described in relation to women, but because the gopis presume every living being to be like themselves, they think that Krishna tears apart the heart of everyone and fills it with love. This presumption is suggested by the use of the masculine word Nara Dara Kena, which can be grammatically understood to include both females and males. Accepting that Maya Shritanam refers to the gopis, in this verse we have a hierarchy in which the devotees in eternal servitorship are higher than the Gyanis, and the gopis are still higher. Thus in this verse, which glorifies the cowherd boys and greatness of the gopis, is also to be seen. The cowherd boys of Braj, to become eligible to play as they do with Krishna, must have performed heaps of pious deeds in their previous lives. The word punja, great quantity, implies that these boys must have had an inexhaustible stock of pious credits. And the word krita, in krita punja, krita punya punjaha, is in the similar expression, kritarta, having achieved the success of one's life, indicates that their past pious works were a very special quality, pure acts of sacrifice offered to the Supreme Lord for his pleasure. Or the word punya in this context can be interpreted to mean activities of pure devotional service, for Krishna himself says, Dharmo mad bhakti krit prokta. Actual religious principles are stated to be those that lead one to my devotional service. Bhagavatam 11:19-27. Or else, Krita can mean the ancient Satya Yuga, Krita Yuga, when the great souls who were later to become Krishna's friends performed faultless meditation on the personality of Godhead and became all around perfect Vaishnavas. Although the darling son of Nanda Maharaj is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, very few persons are fortunate enough to know him as he is. The knowers of the impersonal Supreme realize in the form of Brahma Sukha. In other words, within their hearts they can enjoy only the perception of his existence as pure spirit. And even most Vaishnava devotees realize Krishna only as the embodiment of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, the Supreme Truth, the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Lord, burdened by a sense of reverence for him. They worship accordingly and experience a corresponding quality of bliss. But Krishna's beloved gopis in Braj realize him as Sri Nanda's young son. Freed from theoretical knowledge and reverence that would damage the treasure of their most exalted love, they experience the highest prema. This truth has been stated repeatedly in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, but cannot be overstressed. The gopis are always beside themselves with transcendental anxiety due to the excessive love they feel for Krishna. They usually cannot be with him during the day, and even in their nocturnal meetings they don't feel as completely free to enjoy him as they would like because of the constant threat of opposition from their husbands and families. The cowherd boys, on the other hand, are always free to play with Krishna in varieties of pastimes, both at home and in the forest. Therefore, their good fortune is most exceptional. This does not contradict the many statements of Srimad Bhagavatam that confirm that the blessed gopis are more exalted and fortunate than all other beings. Rather, it indicates that the revered Sukadev, in the core of his heart, is a follower of the gopis' mood of devotion, and therefore, while elaborating on the wonderful pastimes of Krishna and the cowherd boys, and glorifying the boys for being able to play constantly with Krishna in the forest, he speaks like the gopis himself. Sukadev's style of praising the Gopa Kumaras, is supremely fortunate as excuse me. Sukadev's style of praising the Gopa Kumaras as supremely fortunate is non-different from the way the gopis themselves describe as the perfection of vision the sight of Krishna's face while he sports within the forest. O friends, the eyes that see the beautiful face of the sons of Nanda Maharaj are certainly fortunate, as these two sons, surrounded by their friends, enter the forest, driving the cows before them. They hold their flutes to their mouths and glance lovingly upon the residents of Vrindavan. For those who have eyes, we think there is no greater object of vision. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:21-7. I'm going to stop for a few minutes. I have to move to another room.